No, it was supposed to be last Wednesday. They pushed it off a week.
And Willard's here. And
Okay.
should be working.
We're good?
That's why it worked.
All right.
Yes, microphone is on, so it should be good.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ask everybody to rise. We'd have pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody, to the Board of Commissioner meeting for September 2nd, 2025. Trying something new. Joe is taking over the reins on social media, and we're going to try YouTube Live and see how that works for us. So first off, we will have roll call. Mary?
Groats.
Present.
Ott.
Present.
Burgess.
Here.
Bowman.
Present.
Obermeyer.
Here also. Open meetings law is posted on the south side of our chambers, is in the hallway outside of our chambers, also posted on the website. Proof of publication was in the News Times August 27th, also posted on our website. Next up, we need to review and approve the minutes of our August 19th Board of Commissioner meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Groats.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Ott.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. And we need to adopt today's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ott.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Groats.
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Officials forum this morning. Anybody, any official? Harvey?
Good morning.
Morning, Harv.
Just quick update, we are hauling gravel, blading roads, cleaning ditches, and that's pretty much where we're at. And then as a resolution that we have later in the meeting, they've got their stop ahead and stop signs all finally done. So this will be happy, the state will be happy when I get that sent to them. That's about all I have at this point in time.
Or you said tomorrow you have a pre-construction
Oh,
meeting
yes.
with the overlay company.
Right. Tomorrow, pre-construction meeting with the engineer and the pavers incorporated for doing the overlays. At that point in time, I now hope I will get a firm date of when they are going to start. So, other than September. So, anyway.
Okay,
pretty
sounds
much where
good.
we're at.
Any other questions for Harv this morning? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other officials this morning? Gary, Lori?
This morning.
Okay. No other officials in the room present. We'll move on to public comment. At this time, the public is encouraged to come forward and give a comment if they'd like to.
I'll be there in a minute, or can I come up here and finish deadening my phone? So I
Sure,
don't get in trouble.
sure.
We'll do it that way. Also, I was trying to inform a few people, when you said YouTube Live, I don't know if everybody will know that was going on. I was trying to inform a few people because there are two people for positive this morning I know really wanted to hear what was going on, and I'm sorry. Willard Peterson, 514 Road 13. My address is York. I'm really from Bradshaw, Nebraska, to 7 miles that way. You remember York is a suburb of Bradshaw. Bradshaw is the main hub in York County. Anyway, okay. Sorry I was late this morning. Couldn't get across the bypass. I don't know, everybody came out of the woodwork this morning. And when I got to the corner up by the fairgrounds up there, couldn't get on that either. Everybody must have thought something really important going on in York. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, here we go. Several comments. Number one, something was mentioned last meeting about merit pay, and that really piqued my interest, partly because I was in the education field for 40 years, and in 40 years, you see a lot of pendulum swings is what they call it, is what goes on in education. Everywhere else, there was a huge thing about merit pay way back years and years ago. I'm here to tell you that it didn't go very far. There's a few school districts that use it now, but not very many. The reason that a lot of people did not mess with merit pay, and it would be true for you guys if it really works and you really attract really perfect employees. You can't afford merit pay if you're going to do it the right way. You can't afford it, or you wouldn't want to afford it. So I guess the way I look at it is be careful what you wish for. Because if you get good employees, you better have a way for them to really make some money. Bottom line, that's, go back and look at history at the way that's worked. And if you don't look at it that way, all that turns out to be is an excuse not to pay people, period. Okay. The other thing, thinking of your, budget, crunch and trying to crunch numbers and do all this other stuff. Just keep in mind the same thing that happened a few years ago with the roads, where you guys finally admitted that for pretty close to 10 years, you kind of ignored the roads because of the weather and you got away with it. And then we had one really, really, really bad winter, if you remember, back quite a few years ago. And it cost you a lot more than it would have if you would have kept up a little each year. So with all this budget stuff, whatever happens, all you're doing is kicking the can down the road for everything. Now, I'm not saying you got to try to catch up with everything every year, but if you cut back too much on anything, well, there aren't a lot of you that have been here for a long time, but one of the people sitting here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you are just kicking the can down the road, and it'll come back to bite you and bite the taxpayers. Now, it's going to hurt some. It hurts a little bit every year when you do that. It's just the way it is. Okay. Now, another comment that was made about last time, this is the last one, I promise. Oh, I don't see the light going, so
It isn't.
so we're good. All right, I'm good. Anyway, the other comment you made the other day, last meeting, was something about, we need to try to look at making all roads look the same all the time. And that's not really what you meant, but that's kind of what a lot of people would have heard out of it. Went to the state fair, saw this really, really, really big, complicated looking John Deere tractor with the ones with the tracks on each wheel and all that. Well, I happened to see an ad on TV about that very tractor. And what it is, it's John Deere's new, basically a totally autonomous tractor. Are you familiar? Okay, all right. And the gist of this talk on the TV was not a talk, but a piece on it. And they were saying the biggest problem they had with people, a lot of people want to buy it. They can't find the people to sit in it because you still got to have somebody sitting in it to do its job. But that got me thinking about this roads thing and keeping them right all the time. I think they're working, or I don't know, they maybe have close to basically an autonomous road grader. And then if that's the case, or if there's not, it will be. So I would like you to think about an autonomous road grader, because those things could run 24/7. You could set them exactly the way you wanted a road to look, and it would make it that way 24/7. And of course, autonomous vehicles never wear out. You should tongue in my cheek. They never wear out, so they wouldn't, they cost a lot in the beginning. But anyway, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on that. Or the other thing would be, as I told you before, if you made a long-term plan on working on roads, everybody knows where the bad spots are and whatever. And I've told you that before. If you make a long-term plan, that each year you work on a few miles of road and do it that way, in the long run, that'll be cheaper. Thank you for your support.
Anybody else from the public this morning would like to come forward? Morning, Jim.
Morning. Jim Clutie, 1202 Road I. Just to inform you guys, the U.S. Department of Agriculture last week came out and said no more solar on agricultural land. That was on everybody's phone. And the Farm Bureau had a big meeting about a week ago and come up with the same thing. So when you guys get into your zoning, why the Agriculture Department says they're not funding solar projects anymore. We're gonna pull the funding. I think your zoning people done an awful good job. I hope you follow the recommendations. I know you don't think you have to, but I think they done an awful good job. Okay?
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Anybody else from the public this morning? Seeing nobody else get up, we'll continue to move down the agenda. At this point in time, there's no need for an executive session that I'm aware of. We will retain that on the agenda just in case. No general assistance cases, vendor claims, and payroll. We should be able to take care of that before our 8:45 public hearing. Any questions? Fairly small this time, actually, which was nice.
Move to approve payroll and vendor claims.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ott,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Groats.
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes, and just for a matter of information, visited with Megan midweek last week, and it's, second half tax collections were like 80%, 81 or 82%. Wednesday-ish, something like that. Obviously, they were very busy. A couple times I was in the courthouse last week, so busy time of year for them. Okay, so at this point in time, we will hold a public hearing for the public transportation fare increase. The public may step forward if they wish to speak on behalf or against the fare increases. And Mary, do we have a publication date for that? Do you happen to have that?
Yes. I thought I
Yeah,
had
certainly.
it.
13th and 20th of August.
I thought I uploaded it.
13th and 20th of
I
August.
did, okay.
Okay. Lori, can you explain the just a little bit, and then we'll allow the public to come forward if they wish.
Yes, good morning. Lori Byers, York County Public Transportation. We were looking at increasing the fares to be able to better meet our budgetary needs. And so the changes in summary are reduced rates will be based on 100%, 125%, and 150% of federal poverty levels. So that as those change, the feds change those numbers, those will automatically change. In-city limits went, we're proposing $3 per boarding, up from $2 per boarding, still subject to reduced rate fees. In county, proposing $5 per boarding, up from $4 per boarding. Thursday Lincoln trip, $20 per trip, which is one-way or round trip, depending upon what the person's need is that day. That's up from $15. Expanded is where we made a little bit more change. We had it at 60 and 120 miles originally at $20 and $40. We're proposing we break that down because we have a number of people who are just across the border from our county line and are coming into our county for services. And so we're proposing a $15 per trip within 30 miles, which gets those people right across the border and they're not having to pay the big amount. And then $30 per trip for 60, which is takes us to Lincoln and to Gulf Island. And then $60 per trip within 110 miles. And then we are proposing that additional stops outside of York County, because of the distance across the urban areas is quite a bit larger than it is here in York, proposing that those go up to $5 rather than the $2 that they have been since I started in 2006. I will note that when I came on board in 2006, the fare was $1. In 2011, it went up to $2. It's not kept up with inflation because it's been $2 since 2011. And if you look at the federal poverty level, it almost doubled during that time where our fare hadn't been changed at all. And then there's a $2 administrative fee per boarding for billed rides and a $2 fee for same-day ride requests. So that is the summary of the changes.
So once again, that is a public hearing that we're in right now. Anybody from the public may come forward, like I say, to speak for and or against the rate increases.
I'm coming. One more letter.
I will note while he's getting that letter in, we've had a couple of calls to our office from the public. They were all low income, and when we looked at the numbers, their actual costs would not change because the minimum cost is still $1 and they're at $1 now. So it doesn't affect those that are the lowest of the income beings unless they're doing one of the expanded trips.
Willard Peterson, 514 Road 13, York, Nebraska. My address is, I'm from Bradshaw, Nebraska. Also, I am, which really doesn't mean a whole lot, I run the meetings for Aging Services, for the Aging Services Advisory Board. And I'm very proud to be a member of that board. I think we do some really hard thinking about things and ways to help people in this, in York County. And so obviously I totally support this and kind of through the back door. To me, it's a little bit ironic of listening to you guys work on the budget now, and your whole thought process is cut this, cut that. And if you noticed in here, the only way that a group like us can work is to raise. I'm talking about fees, fees and so forth. Because with all of everybody's thought process of how we should be able to come up with money or do this or do that, it is it's getting just as hard for us as it is for you guys, because we have people telling us what we're supposed to be doing. And so anyway, I thought that was a little ironic that we do that, but I think Lori did a really good job of finagling, which is what you guys are doing right now. I get that. You're finagling. And so I think it's, I think it's really important to keep this service, this particular, transportation service. And so anyway, I would totally support this with the reservation that, we have to raise rates. But it is really good that she's kind of figured out how to do it without really affecting the lowest income people. So that'd be what I'd say.
Thank you, Willard.
So you guys aren't the only ones that have problems with thinking about how to finagle stuff.
Anybody else from the public this morning like to come forward? Seeing nobody else in the room get up, I will close the public hearing and we will take up the discuss and act on public transportation fare increases. Anybody have any questions of Lori this morning? I think she explained it pretty well. Not only this time, but the last time, just exactly what we were doing.
There was one, the expanded does still fall into the reduced rates if they,
No,
okay,
No.
so it, okay,
they never have.
okay.
But the Thursday Lincoln trip does.
I sit on that committee with them, and it pains her to have to raise rates for anybody. But when they cut her budget, then somehow she's trying to find the money to replace the money that was taken away. which all of us are. So that's the reason for this.
What's your flavor?
Move to approve the the fare increases for the public transportation department.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes.
Thank you. So that effective date then be tomorrow, I'm assuming, because we've already got people out today.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and take care of your other,
Oh, okay.
while you're up here. We'll jump to discuss and act on the $50,000 donation to aging services that are in two CDs in the amount of $25,000 each. I'll touch on it just briefly. This money was a donation that came into us in June, and we need to have board approval to accept and open these CDs. That got missed at that point in time, so this is kind of retroactively fixing what we have and then getting it into the treasurer system. It proves that audits do work, and found it through the fact that Jill was here, and so we've got that. This is also money that does have some strings attached to it as far as for a vehicle, but it was money to the aging services, not to transportation. So she is reaching back out to the family to see if they want to change some of the language in the letter. So Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, the letter, it says, it's intended to provide the purchase of a handicap accessible van for purposes of transporting seniors and disabled individuals with scooters and wheelchairs, et cetera. In aging, if we were to purchase a van in aging, it would be limited in service to aging 60 and above, which would, number one, miss all the young disabled. And it would be a whole nother grant application with NDOT that is a nightmare. But it also goes on, the letter goes on, and this is what we're trying to get clarified is, could we, this distribution reflects Cheryl Sturr's desire to enhance mobility and ensure independence for individuals with accessibility needs. And so what we're trying to do is get clarification in writing about, can we go with that latter statement, which was her desire, her overall desire, rather than the specific purchasing of a van, which would be very limited in its use in York County. But there's a lot of other things that we could do to enhance mobility and independence for all ages with the aging money.
Okay. So basically today we just need a motion to accept the CDs, the donation from Cheryl, and they're deposited at Midwest Bank. And then we'll have that in our minutes that we can give to Midwest Bank. And then Megan is she's got a fund, a donation fund, not a fund, but a donation line item that she'll put them in, and then Megan will have control over them at that point in time. So everybody got it?
Yep, move to accept $50,000 donation, aging services, and deposit into CDs in the bank.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ott,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
and Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay, we'll get a copy of those minutes so we can get those, after they get them printed this week, and we'll get them down to Midwest then to have two, so they have them. Thank you, Lord. Okay, and there is no discuss and act on funding transfers today. We should be sitting good there. Next up, Director Cannon is here.
That was my reach out to people that wanted to hear this morning.
Speaking to the mics.
What's that?
He's saying speaking to the mics.
Yes.
My
Same
lies
thing.
in the outset, as long as people are right in the mic, they can hear fine.
Yeah. John,
Sir. Is this the hot seat?
it can be.
Okay.
It can be.
We'll try.
It won't be today, though, I'm sure.
Well, you say that. Here, I'll hand that to you, Mayor, if you can hand that out. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is John Cannon, Joncannon. I reside at 700 Cambrian Court, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68510. My office address is 1335 H Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Association of County Officials, otherwise known as NACO. I'm here to visit with you guys, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on the agenda. It was a beautiful morning for a drive. I'm not quite sure I was ready for fall weather to hit us all at once, but that's fine. I'll take that. The reason I wanted to come here and visit with you all is to share with you what we're working on at NACO. It's nice to invite you guys to all of our events, typically in Kearney, sometimes here in New York. Whether it's a workshop or an annual conference or any of our seminars. But I think it's more meaningful when we go where you live. And, frankly, as dues-paying members, that's kind of what we owe you, is kind of explain what we're up to. I will tell you right off that I consider myself an employee of each and every county across the state. NACO is a membership organization that is owned by all 93 counties. And so I've given you my business card. I've got my cell phone number on there. Feel free to call me. I have taken calls at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, and it's cool because my wife has gotten phone calls at 11 o'clock on Saturday night before. We've got the whole thing worked out. But that is to highlight the fact that we work for you. It's not going to work if it's the other way around by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, I wanted to tell you about the resources that we have available to you at NACO, some of which, most of which you guys take full advantage of, but some of which we not have been aware of before. Primarily, there's a number of people that consider NACO to be a lobbying organization. I would say it's probably the second or third duty that we have, most important thing that we do. Primarily, we're an educational organization, so probably our biggest duty is to make sure that you guys have the tools to do the jobs that you need to do here in your county. And so, along with that, we have a number of, like I said, workshops, seminars, annual conference, where we have those sorts of learning opportunities so you can bring back actionable items to your county. And so, I'll briefly describe some of those. We have our county board workshop in June. A number of you guys attended that, and that was great. We also have our county board of equalization workshop. That's as we're getting ready to go into protest season, which you guys just got through. I'm sure it was delightful affair for everybody. But that's really to kind of go through those things about the property tax, how the thing works, how exemptions work, the sorts of things that you want to be looking for. And again, a number of you may have attended that in the last few years, and so we certainly appreciate that. Something that we have coming up is our legislative conference. That'll be October 9th in Beatrice. And so if there's ever been an opportunity where you've said, gosh, there ought to be a law, there's got to be a legislative fix that we can have. Our legislative conference is your opportunity to go in front of the NACO board and say, here's my idea, and present it to them. And what I will tell you is that we generally have assessors, clerks, treasurers, county attorneys, county sheriffs. They all make their presentations. The reason I wanted to mention this to you specifically as a board is because you guys have a unique perspective on how county government works. You guys approve all the claims and all that good stuff. I'm not saying you have a better or worse perspective than the assessor, clerk, treasurer, sheriff, county, but talk me over an adult beverage, and I'll tell you what I really think. But anyway, at that legislative conference, we have all these groups, including commissioners, come in front of the NACO board, and they say, here's what I think should be here's what I think we should do from a legislative perspective. The NACO board will essentially take up their priorities. That becomes an assignment for me and staff to go find sponsors for whatever bills we might want to have carried for us, put that on the floor of the legislature, and then we lobby for those sorts of things. We also have a number of speakers. I think this year we're going to have Revenue Committee Chairman Brad Von Gillern, Senator Von Gillern, will be speaking at the legislative conference, and we'll be talking about taxes, I'm sure. Whether that's the inheritance tax, which everyone gets very excited about, or the property tax, which everyone also gets very excited about. That'll certainly be a comment. So with that, the legislative conference, that's when I again, like I said, I have my orders. And that's when we determine our legislative priorities for the upcoming year. We have our annual conference. That'll be December 17th through 19th in Kearney. And at that, we're going to have a number of things about basically everything that touches on county government. So Open Meetings Act, we'll have stuff on that. Property tax, of course. We'll have things about the BEAD program, the Broadband Equity and Deployment Act from the federal government. A number of the things that affect counties. we'll have speakers and materials that are available for you to bring back to the county. And then in January, we take our legislative positions on all the bills that dropped. We have our legislative priorities from our legislative conference, but we're not the only people that introduce bills or that have bills introduced for them. And as a matter of fact, I have been keeping track of the number of bills that affect county government in the legislature. This last session, we got very, very lucky in the sense that only a quarter of all the bills introduced affect the county government. Typically, it's between 32 and 35% of all the bills introduced are going to be something that we're watching in one way, shape, or form. And sometimes it's, wages and hours or something. I mean, something that applies to everybody, but we still have to watch it because you of course, act as employers, but there are often times that a lot of those bills are very specific to county government. And so it's kind of a big lift, and we determine what our positions are going to be, and then we determine if, how we're going to testify in front of our legislative committees. And it's a great time to have well. So hopefully you guys attend that as well. And then once we get into the remainder of the year, we have a county board chair workshop. We will usually have a new county board member orientation if you have new county board members. This not being an election year, we probably won't have that. We probably will have that in 2020. I've got to get my numbers right, 2027. So those are some of the workshops and things that we do. And of course, we also do a number of webinars throughout the year. I won't try and list them. It's a fairly exhaustive list. Candace and Luke and a lot of the staff back at the headquarters in Lincoln, they'll facilitate a lot of those things. We usually have different speakers and sometimes it's internal staff that put those on as well. So I have talked a little bit about the legislature, so I want to provide some legislative updates on some bills that we were tracking in this most recent legislature that passed or didn't pass, as the case may be. First one I want to talk about is the inheritance tax. The inheritance tax is something obviously the counties are very keen on. No tax is ever popular. For whatever reason, the inheritance tax is one of those taxes that has come under fire recently. A lot of people refer to it as a death tax, although it's paid by the people that survive. So I'm not quite sure how that nomenclature got there. But so last year in 2024, there was a bill that was introduced, LB 1067, from Senator Rob Clements from Elmwood. He does not like the inheritance tax for reasons, and so he brought a bill, and essentially it was going to give some jail reimbursement to those counties that have jails, and it would phase out the inheritance tax over 5 years. The jail reimbursement, was not even remotely close to the amount of inheritance tax receipts that would have been lost statewide. At the time, we were looking at about $98 million statewide inheritance tax receipts, which would otherwise pay for things that the property tax pays for. And one of the things that, as you guys will recall, we put out the bat signal. We said, all right, everyone rally around the flag, contact your senators. You guys as a board did a really phenomenal job of doing that. I know that Senator Hughes was I don't want to say she's on our side at all times, but she's very friendly. I think she's right behind me, isn't she? But she's been typically very receptive and very responsive to York County in particular, but counties in general. And when LB 1067 was taken up, there were, as I recall, 25 co-sponsors on that. I had been talking to a senator from out west, and I say, and we were talking about property taxes. And I said, well, as long as you don't do anything with the inheritance tax, we're fine. He said, oh, John, the inheritance tax is going away, and there's nothing you can do about it. I said, okay, challenge accepted. And that's when you guys got a ton of emails from me, and that's when we rallied around the flag. And I think the story that was conveyed to the legislature most effectively was, if you are going to eliminate the inheritance tax, something has to give. We have to raise it from somewhere else, and the only place that we have to go is property taxes. And you'll hear it on the floor of the legislature. I might not like the inheritance tax, but man, I really don't like property taxes even more. And so that was really kind of the thing that carried the day. Along with that, we talked about if you want to eliminate or reduce the inheritance tax, you have to come up with replacement revenue. And that was something that really resonated throughout the body. And then at the end of the session last year, Senator Clements came to me and he said, okay, John, what replacement revenue would you like? And it's kind of that moment where you're the dog that caught the car, right? You're like, oh, we have to come up with something. And so last summer, we did a pretty comprehensive study about, here are the things that counties pay for, here are the costs of government, here are the different revenue streams we have available to us. And with that, we put a menu of options in front of Senator Clements and said, pick some. And so what we had talked about from our perspective, as far as what we like in terms of replacement revenue, is we want those things to be locally sourced. Senator Clements had said, well, why don't we just write you a check? And I said, I've seen this movie before and its sequels, and I know how it ends. We don't want a check from the legislature. No offense to the folks that are there now, but a future legislature is not going to feel bound, to continue to replace revenue for us by cutting a check, because it's subject to an appropriations process, and that becomes a political thing, and that money goes away very, very quickly. And so, what we were looking for were what are revenue streams that we have that are locally sourced, and so we're looking at things like fees or other sorts of taxes that we collect at the county level. And as a for instance, one of the things that we talked about was the documentary stamp tax, which is collected by your Register of Deeds. And the documentary stamp tax, the rate is $2.25. Well, actually now it's $2.32 starting today, for every $1,000 of value that's being transferred. Of that $2.32, 50 cents stays in the county, $1.82 goes to Lincoln. When your taxpayers come and they write their check for their doc stamps, they're not writing it 50 cents to York County and $1.82 to Lincoln. They're writing it to the York County Treasurer. And so again, that is something that's locally sourced. Your taxpayers believe it is staying in the county, but it is not. 79% of it goes to Lincoln. Again, I live in Lincoln. That benefits me in the long run, but that's not exactly what your taxpayers believe when they're writing out that check. Another tax that's paid locally, where most of the money goes to Lincoln, is the motor vehicle tax. 99% of that money goes to Lincoln. When we were debating the inheritance tax last year, the governor's policy research director said, John, you got to give the governor the win on this. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I will trade you one revenue source for another. I'll give you guys the inheritance tax. You do whatever you want with it. You give us the motor vehicle tax. He said, done, we'll take that deal. I said, no takebacks. And I stuck out my hand. He said, well, wait a minute, how much money is that? And I said, it's $400 million. He said, well, we can't afford that. I said, you're almost there. We almost got you. But that goes to show you that there's a lot of money that's collected statewide from counties that goes to Lincoln, and your taxpayers believe that money is staying in York County. And so when we talked to Senator Clements, these are the sorts of things that we were looking at as far as here's a good source of replacement revenue. The other sources that we were looking at were fees. There are a number of fees that are in the statutes that we have no control over what those fees are. They're set by the legislature, and they do not cover the cost of government. Just as a for instance, when your sheriff goes out and serves a distress warrant, he gets to charge $2 for serving that distress warrant. That doesn't even cover the cost of turning on the car, right? And he has to get in the car, he has to go to wherever it is, he has to serve the papers, come back and do whatever he ends up having to do. Again, there are a number of fees that are like that do not cover the cost of government. And so we were looking at increasing those fees as well. And increasing fees is a very tall order. And so that was something that was not the biggest part of LB 468 and when Senator Clements introduced it. What I will tell you is that we had some pretty good support throughout. There is a core group of senators that do not want to get rid of any tax if they can all help it. And so ordinarily when we're trying to defend the inheritance tax, they're on our side. But when we were trying to find replacement revenue, they were wholeheartedly against reducing a tax here to raise a tax over there. So we got to 31 votes. You need to have 33 in order to overcome a filibuster. I think with a little bit of gumption, we can probably get there, but we'll probably have to rework what LB 468 looks like. And so that was the inheritance tax bill for this year. Because of the fact that it's such a crucial part of county's finances, that's one reason I want to spend a little bit of time on that. There were a few other bills I wanted to talk about. The second one was LB 647. That was a cleanup for LB 34. If you guys recall, last August we had a special session, and during that special session we put on property tax caps. And so instead of having the lid on restricted funds when you guys do your budgeting, which you're in the middle of budget season right now, we got a property tax request cap. And so that means that whatever you levied last year in property taxes, that can only go up, that can only increase by the greater of 0% or slice, which is this index. And then there are certain exceptions to that as well. There were some technical problems with LB 34 from last year that we needed to clean up. Just as a for instance, one of the exceptions is you're allowed a certain amount of growth. And so if you have new construction, that's not considered an increase of the tax levy because it's stuff that hadn't been there before. You're picking it up on the property tax side. The way the formula worked was that in years where slice was 0, your growth would be 0. You would get none of your growth. And so we were like, we got to probably fix that. One of the other things that was important to counties is, generally speaking, on property tax collections and distributions, we retain 1%. And the reason we retain 1% of property tax collections for schools and ESUs and NRDs and cities and all that, the reason that we retain that is because we are 100% of the process, right? The assessor goes out as of January 1st. They submit all their values on March 19th. They have hearings with Turk. They send out the property tax increases in valuation notices. You guys sit as a board of equalization, and you hear those protests on valuation increases or decreases if someone's upset about that. I protested my value once I asked for an increase, and so the board was like, "What are you doing here?" Way back in the day. You approve the tax roll. The tax roll gets sent over to the treasurer. The treasurer prints tax statements and sends it out and collects and distributes all that money. We are 100% of the process. That is why we receive 1%. However, in LB 34, they came up with something called the school property tax credit. And that was a credit that was going to go to the schools. It was $750 million. And it did not say anything about whether or not the county got to keep that commission as for the distribution of those credits, because we still distributed the credits, but it was silent as to whether or not we got the 1% commission. We asked the Department of Revenue. We asked the state auditor's office. The state auditor said, "Well, you guys get the commission on everything else, so of course you get it on this." We asked the Department of Revenue, and the Department of Revenue said, "Well, no, it doesn't say that you can. So why would we let you?" And so we figured that probably needed to be resolved. And again, when you're talking about a $750 million credit statewide, 1% is $7.5 million, and that's real money. So that was one of the reasons that we felt that was necessary to clean up in LB 647. Some other NACO priorities we had: LB 98 had to do with UTV and ATV titling. Sheriffs and treasurers had both asked for that. LB 636 had to do with an increase in sheriff's fees. LB 126 had to do with competitive sale on bonds. LB 458 fixed something that the U.S. Supreme Court kind of made a little murky a couple years ago in a case called Tyler versus Hennepin County, Minnesota, about tax sales. Essentially, if someone lost equity in their property because they had failed to pay their taxes, then there was a question as to whether who was supposed to make that up to that homeowner. LB 240 moved up the date for TIF notices. And LB 58, I'm going to mention this. This is the first bill that the governor signed this year. It was our bill. It was a NACO priority. It has to do with jewelry repair liens. So, Mary, how many jewelry repair liens have you filed in your office in the time that you've been the clerk? I'm going to guess is zero, right? Yeah, it's a law that had been on the books. If you get your jewelry repaired and someone wants to put a lien on it because jewelry is expensive stuff, then what they would do is they have to file a lien in the office of the clerk, and then you pay off your jewelry repair lien, and stuff happens. Again, no one uses this. It's a law that's on the books, and so we said, oh, okay, well, we should probably just take that off. And I thought it was kind of no big deal. And so I took the bill to a friend of mine who's counsel for the government committee. His name's Dick Clark, which is one of the greatest names in the Capitol. And you might not be familiar with Dick Clark. Andy. I'm not looking at Joe. What do you think I'm talking about?
Roll and remember.
What's that?
Dick Clark's roll and remember.
Okay, I guess you do remember it. I took this bill to Dick and I said, Dick, this is the bill that's going to fix everything. And Dick knows that I was a property tax lawyer. He's like, oh, okay, cool. We don't usually get these in government. And I hand him the bill and he looks at it and he's like, how's this going to fix anything? I said, just trust me. And so we both had a little chuckle, and that was fine. Then when his boss got in front of the government committee to introduce this bill, she says, well, I have a note here. This bill's going to fix everything. And I thought, oh, wow, okay, don't say anything, as in jest in the Capitol, because it'll come back to haunt you. But anyway, the bill passed. So, I mean, it didn't. I don't know if it's going to fix everything. I hope so. We'll find out. Some other legislation impacting counties. LE 150 it's a regional mental health jail pilot. What I would tell you is that Sheriff Burko would probably tell you that our jails are becoming an increasingly problematic area for mental health. The largest mental health facility in the state of Nebraska is the Douglas County Jail. And so county jails are seeing that all across the state. And so what the Attorney General wanted to do with LB 150 was to have this pilot program where we establish like a regional mental health facility that's in the county jail that has the beds and the capacity to hold that number of folks. We'll see how the thing works out. One of the things that we're always concerned about is that the state in the past has come in with great intentions. They say, here's a great program that we're going to do, and we're going to fund it fully. And then a few years later, they get into a jam financially, and they say, you know what, we're not going to be able to fund it. Counties, why don't you just go ahead and keep doing this thing? And that sounds fine because we're in the business of, county jails and all those sorts of things. However, as you guys know acutely, those things they're not paid for through wishes, they're paid for through property taxes, and people tend to get excited about the property tax. Might be the first you're all hearing of it, but that is in fact the case. And so we keep an eye on that. We're supportive of the bill. We're keeping an eye on it because it's one of those things where we want to make sure that the funding is going to be there. LB 376 passed. What this does is that in 2029, the county no longer has to provide office space to DHHS for free. We'll be able to charge them rent, or if they want to go out off campus and outside the courthouse, then we're no longer obligated to pay for whatever quarters they use. It's one of those unfunded mandates that we've been talking about forever, since the 80s, when the state took over HHS and Medicaid. LE 78 was a dock stamp increase that I mentioned just a moment ago. We're going from $2.25 per thousand to $2.32 per thousand. That 7 cents is going to go toward the violence assistance fund. When we testified about it, we testified neutral, and we said, hey, look, we're generally supportive of the idea. Couldn't you guys at least make it a dime? So it's $2.35. And the sponsor of the bill said, that's a great idea. I love NACO for testifying that way. And then they did nothing with it. The reason they had it at 7 cents is because when you back into, they wanted to raise $1 million for this fund. Backing into it was a 7 cent increase in the dock stamp. So that's where that came from. LB 166 allows law enforcement's addresses to be withheld on the treasurer's website. We had them withheld on the assessors and the Register of Deeds website for many years past. Every time we would testify about withholding addresses, we said, hey, look, you can still get it on the treasurer's website. You can still actually go into the assessor's office and get this information. And I remember when the first time we talked about the treasurer's website, they're like, well, who actually uses that? And what do you guys know, NACO? Well, then people came around and they're like, oh, those law enforcement addresses are out there. Maybe we should have listened the first time around. And so they brought the bill on LB 166. That worked out. We testified in favor of that. LB 311 has kind of permitting rules for local broadband. There was a related bill that we have that Senator Hughes sponsored for us, LB 176, that talks about, originally it was going to require broadband providers to get permission, essentially get a resolution from the county board saying we're advised and you can go ahead and do your thing. That ran into some fairly stiff resistance in transportation and telecommunications. Senator Hughes has an amendment, LB AM 716, that essentially there's a resolution that you've received notice of where the broadband area is going to be. The real reason for that is because we don't want essentially overbuilding in certain areas. We don't want broadband providers to tear up county roads while they're laying down fiber, because they get the funding and they're like, okay, go, we got to get this thing done. And they not always. We've had a couple cases in counties in this area where they just started digging county roads. That is a problem. And so that's why the county board should be apprised as to what's going on with that. Let's see. We had LB 373 that makes it easier for county boards to vacate county roads. As you'll recall, a couple of years ago when then-elect Governor Pillen was addressing our annual conference, he had just been elected as governor. One of the things he said was, I think the way that you guys fix your property tax problem with the counties is you just start shutting down roads. And I think you guys all remember about what the reaction was in the crowd. Our friends at Farm Bureau just about came unglued. I think they started driving to Kearney when he said that, just because they heard it in the air and they're like, no, that's not going to work. And so the compromise that we've come to is, one of the things that we do to vacate a county road is you have to have a study and you have to have a public hearing. The study takes a long time. It's fairly expensive. And so what this bill does, LB 373, is that you don't have to have a study if you want to vacate a county road. So LB 116, it allows county boards to determine where visitors improvement funds go. So when you have the lodging tax, 50% goes towards capital improvements, 50% has to go toward marketing. with this bill, you get to decide which bucket gets filled more quickly or less quickly, and you kind of, and in certain communities, you might have capital improvements are all taken care of, and you're really lagging on marketing. So this allows you to kind of direct those funds a little bit more with more discretion. And then LB 97 is going to take us down to one license plate starting in 2029. That was a fun debate on the floor of the legislature, as I recall. I think it was Senator Tom Brandt from Plymouth had said, I think I'm opposed to this bill because when I see someone driving down the road, I like to know if they're supposed to be here or not. And then it became an urban-rural thing, and so guess what? That bill passed. One other bill I want to talk about, and it's important because there are some interim studies that are coming up that have to do with this, and this is LB 50. So LB 50 has to do with nameplate capacity tax allocations. And so when we do wind power or solar power or biofuels, those renewable energy generation facilities, they're not subject to property tax. They're exempted from it, but they're subject to what's called an excise tax, nameplate capacity tax. And that nameplate capacity tax goes to the Department of Revenue and gets sent over to the treasurer and then is distributed to all the counties, and then the counties distribute that based on property tax receipts, on the distribution of property taxes within the county. And so a couple years ago, there was a bill that took community colleges off property tax rolls. And so here's where the two come together. Northeast Community College, when they were doing their budget last year, they said, we're $650,000 short. And the reason was because they weren't receiving that nameplate capacity tax that they were losing out on because it was being distributed according to the property tax distribution. And so they went to the state and said, well, could you make that up in as part of our formula? And they said, no, we can't do that. And and everyone knew that 650 grand last year was going to be tight for the budget. And so what they proposed was we'd like to take 5% off the top of the nameplate capacity tax and then distribute everything according to property taxes. We testified neutral and we said, look, this wasn't the deal. The deal was this is supposed to replace property taxes. If the community colleges are off the property tax roll, that should be how it is. And the community colleges said, yeah, I mean, seriously, 650 grand hole in the budget of Northeast Community College, that's a big deal. And so and again, we were neutral and we said, we get it. Our testimony was, if you want to go down this route, here's the thing. Counties, we have all the physical damage to our roads, right? We have more of the damage that we take on this sort of thing than anybody else does. The schools aren't providing roads. These things aren't in the cities. So from that perspective, our allocation should probably go up. And oh, by the way, from the county perspective, we take the political risk on approving these things. It's not the school board that approves them after planning and zoning. It's not the city council that approves them after planning and zoning. It's not the NRD, the ESU, or anybody. It's the county. And so if you guys want to go down this road, we're going to start reallocating this excise tax that we've got. We want more. So they passed LB 50. We have an interim study. I think the interim study is on Friday of this week. I mean, it's a long Labor Day weekend. I apologize for not knowing what I've got going on this week. But that one of the things we're going to talk about is how should we allocate nameplate capacity tax? And I can tell you what our position is going to be is that we should probably get the lion's share of it because we're the ones that take the risk and we're the ones that get the damage. And my understanding is that the industry supports it. They think that we're the ones that are bearing most of the brunt of this thing. We'll see what the cities and the schools are obviously the big player in all this. We'll see what they all have to say about that during this hearing. So it should be this Friday. Tune in. I'll probably wear a suit as well that day. And one last thing I want to mention, it's not legislative, but it has to do with an AG opinion that was issued about a month ago. Kurt Bulgren probably mentioned something to you about this. No nods of recognition. Okay, cool. So the AG opinion was in reference to an older AG opinion from 1977 where a county attorney had said, hey, is the county assessor liable for trespass when they go on someone's property? And the AG back in 1977, Bob Spire, said, well, they're inspecting property because that's their job. We require them to inspect property. And so no, that would be silly for us to charge them with trespass for doing the thing that we tell them they have to do. But if someone's going to be a real stickler about it, there's this statute. It's for inspection warrants that has to do with public safety and public health, not taxation, but whatever. And if someone's going to be a stickler about trespassing on their property, you could apply for an inspection warrant. And when I was an attorney at the Department of Revenue and assessors would ask about this, I would hand them that opinion and they're like, is this any good? And I'm like, well, the AG hasn't said it's not. I always did think that the inspection warrant part was a little bit hokey. And so I said, here are my caveats, just be aware. So the Washington County attorney this year asked Mike Hilders for an opinion. Is this opinion any good? And AG Hilders looked at the law and looked at the case law and looked at the statutory framework and said, no, it's definitely trespass. And he said, as a matter of fact, we have recognized that a surveyor, we have a statute that says the surveyor in the performance of his or her official duties is not liable at trespass. And we do not have a similar statute for the assessor. So therefore, if the legislature did it here and they didn't do it over here, then it's still covered as trespass. So all across the state, a lot of assessors have kind of come a little bit unglued because they're looking at this saying, wait, hold on a second. I mean, how are we supposed to do our jobs? We have an obligation to go inspect property no less frequently than once every 6 years. And if we can't do that, our values are going to be all out of whack. You're going to receive more protests. It creates a really big problem and kind of gums up the works. So we're working on a legislative fix for it. In an election year, when you say, hey, by the way, we'd like you to exempt the county assessor, which, is the most popular position in the courthouse, as you guys know, we want you to exempt the county assessor from the law of trespass. We'll see how that whole thing goes during an election year. So wish us luck. But if you have any insights or any ends with your member of the legislature, that would be a great thing to bring up. And maybe I'll talk to her a little bit later because I suspect she's got a couple things for me to hear about too. I know how much time do I have? I know I'm taking up a lot of.
We didn't put a time limit on you, John, so.
That was wise.
Yeah, maybe not.
So again, I talked about some of the other things that we do. We have our district meetings that we have coming up. The registration is open. Southeast District is September 11th. The Northeast District is September 12th. The Central District is September 18th. And I think you guys are in the Central District. Panhandle, September 24th, and West Central, September 25th. We have a pretty full agenda for all those district meetings, so I hope to see all of you there. We're working on a salary study right now, and on or before January 15th of next year, you guys as a county board have the obligation to determine what the salaries are going to be for the elected offices in the courthouse. You have to do that every 4 years, and the reason is because when people file, and they're going to file in February, they should know what the job pays. If you're going to pay, like $3,000 a year for the sheriff, whoever wants to run for sheriff should probably know that. I hope you're going to give them a little bit more than $3,000 a year. The reason we do this is that back in the 70s, the Dundee, I think it was the Dundee County clerk, was being paid like $3,000 a year, which even in the 70s was not much. And there was a legislator from out there that said, that's not right. We should set the salaries for all county officials. And my predecessor, Jack Mills, said, that's a terrible idea because, and again, this is no offense to the legislature, but when they set something, they kind of set it and forget it. They'll come back to it when they feel like it's necessary. And there's not always a real impetus to say we should raise salaries for county officials. And so what was the compromise back then is that the legislature sets the minimums, and we undertake a salary study every year. We say, here's what surrounding counties are paying their assessor, clerk, treasurer, sheriff, attorney, all that good stuff. Here's what similar caseloads do. Here's what counties with similar valuations have. We put a whole bunch of information out there. We provide it to you. We did something very similar for county employees a couple of years ago, last year. We updated it a little bit. So we're going to do the same thing with this salary study. We're going to have it on a GIS map. And so you can select whatever comparable counties you think are necessary. You can select the categories that you want, the factors that you think are most comparable for your highway superintendent, for any of those positions that you're setting salaries for next year. We'll be releasing that at our October 9th legislative conference, and so kind of a little sugar to get you to come to the legislative conference. But otherwise, we'll be sending out the link to the dashboard the same day. So you don't have to come to the conference, but it would be nice to see you there, though, all the same. Let's see. We have a new hire, relatively new hire in the office. Her name is Lauren Franken, and she is the communication specialist. And so if you follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, or whatever it's called, and whatever the things are, you've probably noticed that we've had an increased output on our social media, as well as a lot of our communications, and that's solely due to the efforts that she's had. She's been a wonderful addition to the team. We're pretty happy with that. We're expanding on our website. We have a blog that's out there, and we're trying to expand our presence on that. And she's written a few articles. Candace has written a few articles. My ask of you is it's great for the folks in NACO, the pinheads in the ivory tower, to say, well, here's what we see going on in the world of counties. It means a lot more if it's coming from you. So if there's a story going on in your county, something that you guys are particularly proud of, we would love to hear about it. If there's something you're not proud of, we'd love to hear about it too. But to put something on our blog, one, it's for other county officials to see, like, hey, here's what's going on across the state. They've got a similar situation. Maybe I can reach out and call them and see what's up. But also for your citizens, so you can point to that and say, here's something that we're putting out there for you. It's another medium, another source of information for people that are out there. So the sheets that I handed out to you, those come from our County Explorer page. And we have a research division at NACO. We started this a couple years ago. One of the reasons that we did that, the primary reason we did that, was to help us in putting together our fiscal notes. And in so doing, we started gathering a comprehensive amount of information about every county in the state. And this isn't all the information, but trust me, this isn't just the information we have for your county. This is the one pager that we have that we produce based on that wealth of information that we have. If you scan the QR code that's on there, or you go to the website that's on there, they'll take you to your County Explorer page, and you can select York County, and you can go through and you can find out everything you'd ever want to know. I mean, the number of wells you've got, what the percentage of row crop is versus everything else. There's demographics, economics, education, all that stuff. It's all in that County Explorer. Do check it out. And frankly, these things are very handy as a one-pager. I usually have them with me, hand them out to the public, hand them out to other county officials, say, here's what we're doing, and they kind of give you a snapshot as to what's going on in your county. And so it's a really good resource. After we started doing all the research that we were doing, we said this is too good not to share. And so that's why we created the County Explorer website on the NACO website. The reason we did that is we were copying wholesale stealing from the National Association of Counties. They have their own County Explorer, so we didn't even bother coming up with a clever new name for it. We just took it wholesale. And I do want to mention the National Association of Counties. Their value is they do a lot of advocacy for us at the federal level. They set the agenda for a lot of counties across the state, all 3,069 counties, parishes, and boroughs across the country. They also provide, like we do, discounted programs for prescription cards or retirement services or cybersecurity. So they're pretty good about that. And then they're leaders on issues involving broadband, waters of the U.S., payments in lieu of tax, USDA funding, opioid funding, and local infrastructure project funding. When we had ARPA a couple years ago, and actually before that was the CARES Act, and National NACO had worked with the Trump administration on the CARES Act. There's this distribution of money that went to the states, and it was intended to be distributed to the local political subdivisions, quote unquote, with no strings attached. Our governor, like every other governor, I'm not going to pick on Governor Ricketts, said, no, we're going to attach some strings because the feds can claw this back. And so under the CARES Act, there was this portal we had to go through, and there was all this reporting requirements that we had to do, and it was kind of a pain in the neck. The National Association said, that's not what we intended. And we know for a fact there's going to be a second round of distributing monies to counties, to government, to keep them afloat during COVID. And so what they did is they did something we've never seen before, and we probably will never see again, which was a direct allocation to county governments. So National NACO worked with Trump and Biden administrations. They worked with both houses of Congress, both parties in Congress, the U.S. Treasury Department, to make sure that allocation that direct distribution was done to counties in a way that people could track, and it was reasonable and all that good stuff. York County you guys got quite a bit of money from ARPA. I think you have to have it spent by the end of the year. Hopefully you will.
We're getting close.
Okay, that's great. Best news I've had all day. The day is young. But the National Association of Counties was directly responsible for the ARPA distributions that we received. And so they're not paying me to mention them, but they are kind of a big deal for us. Last couple things I'll mention: sign up for our weekly newsletters if you haven't already. We've got the 93 newsletter. I think all of you are signed up for that. The blog that I mentioned, please check that out. In our legislative newsletter that we have during legislative session, it provides a lot. Beth Farrell does that. She does a great job of saying, here's everything that's going on in the legislation that you need to be aware of. If there's anything in particular that you want us to keep track of, please let us know. And with that, I am done. I would like to cede the remainder of my time, if I have any, to Senator Hughes, if she'd like to. Don't want to put her on the spot, though.
I don't know. I am not gonna talk as long as this guy does. Is that okay?
Well, I kind of hope not. Yeah, I mean, we got a lot to go up here yet. But Senator Hughes, please come forward.
I get that a lot.
And then drag that microphone towards you.
Okay.
I don't know that you boom quite as loud as John does.
Good morning. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't have the gift of words that my friend here does.
You're very kind.
You mentioned a lot of things that I was going to mention anyway, so I will keep my part short. Thank you for having me. So I was just going to talk through a little bit of some of the bills I brought, some of them that affect the counties, of course. And then if there's questions or whatever, be fine. But so this year we passed around 334 bills this last session in 204 bills, because some of these committee packages and things are together. We passed one constitutional amendment, and that will be on the ballot in 2026. And that would be to change, we will still keep term limits for legislators, but it would be to go to three 4-year terms instead of 2 4-year terms. So that will be on the ballot in 2026. Some of the bills that I got through, we had a cleanup on our prescription drug donation program, and that has been signed by the state of Nebraska. We're partnering with the state of Iowa. And so now medication that's in blister packs, not expired, can go there. But the biggest thing is it can now come back into Nebraska. Our pharmacies can get that inventory for folks that are underinsured or uninsured for free. So that is a good thing for Nebraskans. It's a good thing we're not just, because before we threw it away, destroyed it. So that's in effect now. We passed LB 303. That was a school funding bill that I brought. We had no money for it, but we did get the Education Commission going to look at TIOZA every year on how we fund schools and make recommendations. And they've had one meeting so far. LB 166 was actually my bill, and John Cannon mentioned it, and that was to protect our National Guard law enforcement and judges by removing their addresses from the county and treasurers. I think that was just an oversight from the original bill. Passed LB 9, which is an alternative excise, or it's an excise tax on alternative nicotine products. So I'm kind of known as the vape person in the body. I brought in an excise tax my first year on vape. Now kids don't vape, they do Zyn pouches, which are the nicotine pouches because they're easier to hide. Anyway, we passed a 20% excise tax on that. See, Joe's even nodding, I know. I have a kid that's in school too. And
I was looking at Andy. I just want to say that for the record.
Andy,
When
okay.
I was giving you a hard time about being young, I was talking to Andy.
But the nice thing about this is we've made it an umbrella. So it's alternative nicotine items and also analogs. So what they do, it's like whack-a-mole. They come up with a nicotine-like product and change one little molecule. Well, now it's not nicotine, so now it doesn't fall under the taxing, right? So now we've made that umbrella. If it acts like nicotine, then it is, and it will get this excise tax. Also, any new thing, if they come up with a nicotine sucker or a sticker or whatever, it will fall under this. So we don't have to keep kind of chasing the tail. The other big bill, probably the biggest bill our office passed was LB 309, which is a recycling battery bill. And this is for like the mid-size rechargeable batteries you might have like in your power tools or an e-bike, things like that. Right now, you just throw them away. There are places that collect them, but they charge a fee. So by 2 years, we will have places set up all over the state. They'll advertise it that you can take these when they're out of use. You don't need them anymore. Take them there. So hang on to them if you have any. Just wait. And you'll be able to drop them off. They'll get recycled, so we can get that lithium out, which is good for the United States. But also, this is good, and I know York has had, the landfill's had a couple of problems. These things cause fires. If they get crushed, we've even had garbage trucks. They'll pick them up, they crush their load, it sparks. You can't put water on them. They'll dump their load out. A truck has burned down actually all the way. So this is a problem. And the nice thing about this, it costs Nebraska nothing. The battery producers will be paying for this whole program. Their perk is if they're part of this program, their batteries will be able to be sold in Nebraska. It's a nationwide thing. These bills are kind of going across the nation. The fires are a big problem. I don't know if you've ever read in the paper or whatever. This is kind of what's probably going to happen. And the battery producers want to stop the bad marks against them. So that's why they're supporting this. So that's good for Nebraska. We dealt with 3 ballot initiative things on the legislative floor this year. Sick leave, which basically we just put nuance to it. We eliminated seasonal workers like detasselers, things like that. We eliminated contract workers from that. And then we also exempt any business that's 10 people or less. They do not have to mandate paid sick leave. So protecting kind of our smaller businesses. We dealt with minimum wage a little bit. Minimum wage goes up to 15. This I'm sure affects you guys with employees. Goes up to $15 next year. And then after that, it was going to grow by an index. Right now, the bill out there, and I have a feeling it'll be up first in January. It would increase that minimum 1.75% a year going forward. We'll see if that goes or not. We also dealt with medical marijuana, and that was an epic mess, and we passed nothing. And so now we added 2 members to the Liquor Control Commission. We have 5 in there, 2 marijuana people, and then the other 3 liquor. And the commission is establishing rules and guidelines, but they have no money. And so we can't enforce anything. We can't make a website to let dispensaries register. We have nothing. And if you haven't noticed, some of the vape stores are turning into dispensaries. Our police and sheriff are having issues. What do you do? If you have a certificate, you can have up to 5 ounces. That's what passed. They don't know what to do. It's a hot mess. So we'll see what happens in January. In the interim, I'm working on another school funding bill because that's what I seem to like to do, beat my head against the wall and just keep trying. I'm like never ready bunny. Looking at some sales tax exemptions, sunsetting credits, things like that. Property tax is what we hear the most about. You guys do too. And we've got to have some alternative revenue. I have no problem shifting some revenue to some sales tax. We exempt a lot of sales tax in the state, much more than other states. On services and things like that. And I am okay capturing some of that revenue to try to replace some of our property tax issues. Things that affect you've already talked about it. This is the first year budgets against that slice index. I'm kind of curious, we can talk offline about that, how that's going. That affects cities and counties. Right now, it doesn't affect NRDs. I feel like that might be coming at some point with the other taxing authority. I've heard talk of maybe timing of the pink postcard might change, or it comes really late. I don't know. I'm not bringing that, but I've heard about it. And of course, inheritance tax is always coming up. And I am not going to get rid of that and push it on property tax. You've got to have some alternative revenue for that if it's going to get my vote. So that's about it. You guys have any questions for me?
Your study on the funding.
The school
Right.
funding stuff, yes,
What are you hopeful comes out of? I mean, you said there was one meeting already.
yes.
More planned up
Yes,
until
we've got one.
legislature comes back in.
So I'm trying to be, I'm optimistic, but I'm also a realist. And like I said, we just had our first meeting, but I don't know what will get accomplished before January comes, just because there's not a whole lot of, unfortunately, it's September. Not a whole lot of time left. And they have got, that board has to make the recommendation to the legislature by, I wrote this bill November 1st, December 1st, around there. So we don't have a whole lot of time. My hope is with this ongoing, TIOZA was meant, it has a bunch of levers in it. And for like 15, 20 years ago, when ag valuations went crazy high, where housing and commercial stayed, they were going up, but a little bit lower. At that point, if this commission would have been established, there were levers in there that would have, you could have adjusted and said, oh, ag ground's gone up, let's lower that percentage to keep state funding going to those places. It didn't happen. And so as ag in particular went up, a lot of our more rural school districts lost state funding. State funding got pulled back because, oh, well, you have the means to pay for it. And to me, that started this whole issue. This started us down the road of such a strong property tax fight, if you will. So I'm hoping this commission is there to make those recommendations to change levers and keep state funding. We can argue on what percent state funding, how much should come to locals versus what is taken locally. But I'm hoping this commission will, kind of work with that and make those recommendations. Now, it took 20 some years to get into this mess. We're not going to get out of it overnight. So we've got to celebrate the little wins that we've had. And I think one win was taking the community colleges off of our property tax ask. And the state took over funding in that. And actually last year was the first time the state as a whole took less property tax in than it had in 20 years. So in 20 years, it'd gone up, the state was as a whole, more and more and more property tax. That 1 year that the state, paid for school funding, property tax ask went down. First time. So we don't ever hear about that, but that is a little win. So we are making progress, and I think front loading that tax credit. So your statements here that went out this fall, last fall, showed that credit, so you didn't have to pay in your property tax and then ask for it in a rebate from income, is also a win. Don't take my money and then make me ask for it back. So I think we've done some little baby steps toward this, definitely more hopefully to come. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also a realist, and we don't have a whole lot of money. If you keep seeing the, the tax receipts that are coming in, we might be going into a deficit again in January, so that'll be fun. But it makes it easy. If a bill has a fiscal note, forget about it.
So then another question
Yes.
would be on the initiatives that are out there now.
Oh, the
That
new
come
ballot
and say,
initiative.
you want your property taxes to go away by 50%,
Right.
but they don't have any replacement revenue, which is going to drop it into your guys'
Yep.
lap if they're successful.
Yep.
Have you guys started thinking about that
Right.
already too?
So, yeah.
Oh, John?
One thing I want to mention on that ballot initiative, they say it's going to cut your property taxes by half. What they do is they cut the assessment rate in half. Now, for the counties and for most counties, especially if you're under 25 cents, you reduce the assessed value by 50%, you're just going to move your levy up. And so it's not going, there are a lot of places in the state, it's not going to affect property taxes at all if you do it that way. I mean, in my opinion, focusing on the valuation is fool's gold. It's really on the property tax request, on the levy itself, not the levy rate, but the levy. That's where you got to, that's where the action is. And until you do something there, all this other stuff is just noise, in my opinion. Sorry, thank you.
No, yeah. And I haven't read the details of these two new initiatives, but it is the one where right now ag's at 75%, it would drop it down to 32.5, and residential housing would go down to 50. And you were right in that if you're under that levy amount, you can just double your levy and it wouldn't change anything. The other thing, I think it would keep valuations going up at just 3% a year, I believe. And there's also a bill still out there, which would be a CA is still floating out there for next year, that would put us, that you pay the property tax, you move in your house, you pay the property tax that is now, and it never goes up. It's what California did until you sell or whatever. And that has some other issues with it as well. There's also Epic 2.0 is coming out again, and that is that on the ballot, if it got enough signatures, would completely eliminate property tax, completely eliminate income tax. And
inheritance tax.
Oh, and inheritance tax. And then it would be on the shoulders of us in the next, by 2 years or 3 years, I can't remember which, to come up with alternative revenue, which if you can't do income tax, you can't do property tax, has to be some sort of sales tax. I have many questions about that. But I think the biggest question is, I think that the biggest rub is, what should property tax pay for? And how much should the state pay for other things? So I think we can all agree property tax should pay for things that support the property. 911 services, fire services, the roads, things that support that property. Then you go into like your local schools. Well, maybe we can agree it should support some of the local schools. What's that percent? How much should the locals pay? How much should the state? With schools, you've also got the issue of how your school district is drawn, your tax base. You can look at Seward and York, same size school, same number of kids, 1,500-ish kids. If the state, let's say the state, Farm Bureau, I was with Farm Bureau this morning and somebody threw this out. Well, what if the state would just pay for all the operating And then the locals have to pay for the buildings and the administration, okay? So let's say York and Seward are exactly the same size, same operating, everything. The state pays for the operating of both those, okay? So they both get the same amount of money. And then you put on the property tax owners the rest, the administration of the buildings. Let's say they're exactly the same, Seward and York. Guess who has a double tax rate? York does, because you guys have half the valuation of Seward Public Schools. I'm making that up, it's not quite, but Seward has a way higher valuation than York does. It's just how the district is run. You have to handle that issue also. That is the rub among the school levies. You've got ground in York, you've got ground in Centennial. Guess who's paying a lot? Dan's like, yep. Guess who's paying a lot more just because it's how the district's drawn. I mean, it's just, or Cross County, York and Cross County, it's the same issue. We've got it all in District 24. So you've got to handle that little piece. And, you know what, let's just redraw the school districts every 10 years with the census, right? So, I'm not bringing that bill, but that would make it more fair, if you will. So many things with schools, yes. So we're making progress, and we have a governor that's really focused in on property tax, which I think is very helpful. So,
Gentlemen, any other questions this morning?
Yeah, I just want to say that it helps to go to NACO and ask John what's going on in the legislature and what their priority bills are. That helps so much, so that when I go to her and the young man with her in the back of the room and talk to them, you weren't going to get left out. So, I know you like that. It makes it much more focused for me, knowing what is going on and what bills they're looking at. And then they can in turn ask me, what do you think about this? This is what we're doing.
Especially knowing that we're not gonna have Julie repair liens filed at the clerk's office.
That's right. But it really does help. And anybody that's here, I will photocopy this when we take a break sometime, because we got a long agenda and you can all have one, because it has their website and that little QR code on the bottom. I'll give them to you.
Matt Howe is with me today, and he is my legislative aide, and he is a District 24 member. He lives right outside, about a mile out of Goner. So he is secondhand man in District 24 office, and really great to work with. So, and Katie Quintero is the AA, so if you have a call, typically she'll answer her phone. She's been with District 24. She was with Mark Holtzman the whole time, so she's very knowledgeable too. So.
Anybody else this morning? I don't know how long were you guys planning on staying? I mean, we do have a big agenda yet. Why don't we take about a 15-minute break here? I don't know if you were planning on sticking around or not, but at least anybody in the audience could visit with you a little bit, and we can take a minute to visit with you.
I work for you, man.
That's what you keep saying. Let's take a 15-minute.
All right. We are on you.
Okay, at this time, we'll come back into session. Very informative so far this morning. So next up, we will discuss an act on adopting a resolution for stop signs. Harv, I believe you touched on that briefly before.
Yes, this is that stop sign and stop ahead sign program that they had out there that we signed up for. And as of last Thursday, they finally got through the sheet that was all the things that we needed to do. So now it's just adopting the resolution saying we did it. You guys sign in it, and then I will get it sent in to Jody, so we're off of the books on that.
Okay. Any questions for Harv this morning on that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We all sign it, it looks like.
Mhm.
And it is by resolution.
A motion to adopt resolution certifying completion of the stop and stop ahead sign program.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Gross,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay.
When you get that all signed, I'll pick it up from Mary later, and then I will scan it in and get it down there where it needs to be.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Harvey. Okay, next up, discuss and act on adopting countywide resolution in support of York County Ag Land. Daniel, I'll let you, I know me and you had the conversation regarding it, but I'll let you kind of take over.
Yeah, so this is something that has been in the back of my mind for some time. We have in the past done resolutions regarding livestock-friendly county. We've done resolutions supporting Second Amendment rights, etc. And so as we've been discussing zoning and different things, this is something that has been in the back of my mind as to if it was something I wanted to bring forward. And so as I had discussions with the board, decided it was something I'd put together, bring it forward, but talk about it as a whole board and see if it was something that we wanted to support. I know that for myself, I think it formalizes my support for the ag community and the crop and livestock production that happens in this county. And so I think it's a good thing for the board to formalize that support. I believe everybody had a copy, but I'll just read it here so that we have what I put together. And so this would be resolution 25 whatever number falls into there. Whereas since becoming a county in 1870, the agriculture industry has been backbone of the York County economy, with over 93% of land acres being used for agricultural production. And whereas over half of the workforce in York County is employed in agriculture-related jobs, and whereas York County acknowledges that crop and livestock production is important to the economic well-being of the county, and whereas the natural resources in York County are prime for crop and livestock production, providing fertile soil and abundant water from its location directly above the Ogallala Aquifer. And whereas York County consistently ranks at the top of state and the country in crop producing counties, most recently ranking number 1 in corn production in Nebraska. And whereas it is the desire of the York County Board of Commissioners to declare its support for the best use of prime farmland as crop and livestock production. Now therefore be it resolved that the York County Board of Commissioners hereby declare that we support the best use of prime farmland as crop and livestock production. So this also goes back to a story that I some of you probably have heard me tell before. But back to my ancestry, a great uncle of mine immigrated from Germany and landed in Denver. He was a tailor there by trade, and then decided that he would start out as or change his occupation to being a farmer, and move to his wife's family's farm, which happened to be here in York County. And he told some of his friends in Denver that he was going to move to York County, Nebraska to become a corn farmer. And those friends that had never left Denver said, there's no better place to raise corn than York County, Nebraska. And so that was probably, I don't know exactly when, but probably 70, 80 years ago. And I think that we still are one of the very best places to do that. Additionally, I just saw a map over the weekend where York County, Nebraska is ranked number 3 in acres of, in area of acres dedicated to raising corn in the whole country of the United States. So we have a rich history in crop and livestock production, and so that's my the background in my mind of bringing forth this resolution.
Any comments, guys?
I just got.
Joe, I'll have you get, if you
Okay,
can,
yeah.
get that mic up closer. So
I'll move the computer.
there you go. Thank
There we
you.
go. All right. Well, I mean, Daniel already acknowledged it, but we've got the debates over zoning going on right now, so.
Joe, I can't hear you.
Okay, I'll talk a little
All
louder.
right.
As Daniel already mentioned, we've got the, debates on zoning going on right now, so, I guess I would have mentioned that we want to make sure we're not,
When you back away from it.
we're not prejudging any decisions, for that with this resolution. And I don't necessarily think that we would be, but the tendency with resolutions is that then, once you get to the discussions, you get, refer back, well, we made this resolution here, therefore, whatever else. And so I want to make sure we're careful with that. And then this resolution talks about declaring a best use for farmland. And in land use and appraisal settings, the best use, or I think it's usually called the highest and best use, usually refers to the basically the most profitable use, which is determined, by economic forces in the market. That's not really what we're talking about here, obviously. So then I guess what are we talking about with best use? Because in my opinion, if we're talking about best use for the landowner, for each landowner personally, that's not really something that's the board's job to decide. Nor really could we decide what's best for each person. And if we mean the best use for the welfare of the community, which is another thing that you could be talking about, that's kind of already the role of zoning laws, is to protect the welfare and the health of the community. And that's, and the property of the neighbors, frankly, too. So that's kind of already covered in zoning laws. So for this, those reasons is kind of why I don't know if this, if it's really our place as a board to be deciding what the best use of is for this land. Because landowners should be able to make that decision for themselves. So I don't know if I would necessarily support this resolution as written right now. Obviously, we do want to support what has supported York County and continues to and will in the future support the majority of the economy of York County and all that in some way. I just don't know if we want to be I don't know if it's really our job to declare a best use for the land as a board. I don't know if that's really our place. And I don't really agree with that necessarily.
Anybody else?
Me and Daniel talked about this resolution considerable over the last few months. I think what Daniel's put together is exactly at the heart of what this county is, what this county was built upon, and what this county should stand for moving forward. I'm 110% in support of this resolution. I think what a lot of people forget in this county is how deep agriculture and all of its components reach within this county. I would say, just a guess, that 3/4 to 7/8 of the business done at our current banks have some agricultural tie to it. The grocery stores, stocked by farmers, feeding the farmers, feeding the people of the towns in our county. None of that happens without farmers. I feel very strongly that this resolution does not limit future growth, but it definitely points us in a direction that this board can say, yes, we stand behind agriculture, we stand behind our community, we stand behind the property tax owners and what they stand for.
To that, in the town halls that I was in, I think this was something that was brought up multiple times by multiple residents.
One of the main things that it says, just to give it a different caveat to best, it doesn't say only.
That's so true.
So that is true too. So, but it definitely is, if it's 90% agriculture, it's 90% agriculture right now, and that's what we should support.
Yeah, I see there's, the NACO number we got is 90. Well, we got 93. We know that ag has been and has been huge for the county for a lot of years. I would agree with Leroy there a little bit. It doesn't say only use. I would also wonder if this goes through the prime, do we even need the prime word in there? Because farmland's farmland. Some isn't as good as others. They can be right next door, not as good as others. So then we were just talking about prime land, or are we just talking about the ag land of York County? Personally, I would love to see one more sentence at the end of it, and whereas that York County Board of Commissioners hereby declare we support the best use of prime farmland or just farmland as crop and livestock production, while still the integrity of property owners' rights is intact. And I would love to see that piece in there too, because we all know that is a core function of every level of government that we want is our property rights protected, whether it be county, whether it be state, whether it be federal. But yeah, I think that the county as a whole benefits, as you said, Andy, from our ag producers. It's part of it. Those of us that are in business, we depend upon it, as well as the 10% also. My residential, commercial, industrial customers are important to me also. So I have no problem with it. And like I say, with what Leroy brought up there about if it said only use, then I would have a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, no.
And this
And plus
is
it's a resolution too.
right.
So,
This
yeah,
isn't
exactly.
law. It's like the Second Amendment we passed. We got behind it, but it doesn't have the authority that some think it does.
And we do want to honor the history there and the continued, as well as, frankly, the culture of York County is primarily focused around that. So, but yeah, I think with a caveat like that, maybe like the extra sentence or whatever sort of thing, I could definitely be in support of this. The other way you could do it, other than adding that sentence, is, I guess, I mean, that would work, but another way you could do it is rephrase it instead of maybe just so I guess you're talking about prime farmland versus farmland, get into definitions there or whatever else. So if we make it more vague that way, that would help too, I think. But also just support for the families and the businesses and that sort of stuff, I guess. But yeah, that makes sense to me.
Anything, Daniel?
Yeah, let's see here. I mean, I'm fine removing the word prime, just using farmland.
You wrote it, so I'll let you.
Yeah.
And you did a good job too. I assume you had a template to go by, but
I looked at a few.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
And my comments aren't gonna change my support.
Right.
That's
Yep. Yep.
what I believe.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we, adopt, the ag land resolution, or I guess we're calling it farmland resolution, with the caveat of removing the word prime, just for all farmland as crop and livestock production.
I would second that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Mary.
Groves,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay. You'll get the corrections to Mary and stuff like that. Okay, discuss and act on supplemental agreement to provide additional money from NDOT. Lori, I believe this pertains to you, to York County Public Transportation for year 25.
Yes, the fiscal year that just ended.
Yeah.
So the previous year that just ended was part of a 2-year fiscal agreement with NDOT, fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25. And we didn't exceed our budget with the county. However, monies were spent over what the agreement was with NDOT. And so they sent out a supplemental agreement. They have funds from last fiscal year. Can't bring those forward, but anyways, they gave us this supplemental agreement so that York County can get reimbursed for funds it's already expended. So that's what this is for.
And this amount could be up to
Yes,
$31,000.
and
So we'll have to approve the amount we've expended, and then we'll get the refunds. Or is this
we have to
already?
approve the supplemental agreement.
Right.
And then NDOT will then send us the funds that we've requested for the month of June.
Okay.
Which was the month they just finished approving.
Okay.
But they're holding the check until we get this supplemental.
Okay. All right. Any questions of Lori while she's in front of us here? Especially in budget season, there's no reason to turn down money.
And do you have a copy there for your signature?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. And this is just a motion. It looks like.
To accept the agreement.
Right. Entertain a motion.
Move to accept supplemental agreement from Nebraska Department of Transportation in the amount of $31,000.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ott,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Groves,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay, look, before we jump into the wages and everything, let's just go ahead and take care of a couple of the other pieces, then we'll end on the budget and wages and all that. Something that will affect it is, over the years with Henderson, we have, they have requested and, 6,000. So we gave them $6,000 a year this year for the budget year 24-25. They did not request. We had budgeted for the 6,000. They did not request it. Usually all of our, I don't know if you want to call them vendors, but all of them usually ask. And then once they ask, and if it's been budgeted, we pay. They did not. So now they would like to know if we would do a multi-year, 12,000. So I had Mary put it on the agenda. It's obviously not up to us to remind them. We shouldn't have to remind them. In this case here, they didn't. So what's your wishes on that? And this is one of those things that inheritance does fund, I believe. So do you feel comfortable doing that, or you want to just leave it at the 6,000 that is normally there?
This does not come directly out of budget.
Well,
It comes out of budget.
money expended. So it's included in our budget. It is money that we currently fund out of non-restricted funds, so non-property tax funds.
Like we do YCDC
Correct. That's what I was asking.
and all that.
I would have no problem doing it in 2 years since we didn't pay last year. I know with a lot of our villages, small cities, stuff like this can't slip. Where we don't have full-time office staff all the time, so this is a great service for that. Not just Henderson, but that whole area. I think we need to make a whole.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm okay with that since we didn't last time. It is something that they are consistent in pushing to the very last or possibly rolling over. So I would just reiterate that, I'm fine supporting it. I would say that if this happens again, we probably won't do 24 next year.
I think they had, used to be a sitting member of the sport would remind them what we're there to get it done, and they don't have that remember part.
So you're saying it's my fault?
Said used to be. I didn't say it was currently.
You saw the look. I was like.
Okay, entertain a motion to allow this to happen, and then we'll put it into the budget.
Make a motion to approve the $12,000 expenditure for the city of Henderson for the ambulance service.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Mary.
Bowman,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Groats,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay, and then the last thing that's non-budgetary, I did have Mary put this on there to discuss and act on zoning regulations. And the reason I put this on there, I did have a conversation with Leroy over the weekend. This obviously affects Commissioner Ott because last week the numbers, and I'll let Mary speak to that if she wants to, but the numbers were turned in the recall election. They have to be certified yet, which will, I believe, take place this week. Leroy had no problem going ahead and discuss zoning, but I do believe this should be a board's decision, whether we want to at this point in time, or if we want to let the process take its place and then take it back up again once the process has taken its place. Mary, I'll let you explain just a little bit about the timing if you would, and then the board can talk about it.
Once we certify all these signatures and they are acceptable and there is enough signatures of 422, I will then come to the board at our next meeting. That would be the 16th. The 16th, request a election. It'll have to be a resolution. You guys have to give me 8 Fridays, and then the election will take place the second Tuesday after the first Monday after those 8 Fridays. So we are looking at November 11th for election day. it will be an all-male election. I will have to contact the state and get permission. Most likely, they will say yes. So all ballots will have to be returned November 11th. So that's the timeline that we're looking at. If, Leroy, you are recalled, you will have to step down immediately after I certify you with a letter.
And then if,
Then the process of appointing Gary, the county attorney, treasurer, Megan, and myself will then appoint a commissioner, and we'll have 45 days to do so.
Okay.
And that's it. So we're looking at maybe January, February for a new commissioner, if
well,
everything goes through.
it'd be sometime in December.
Yeah. Correct. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So Leroy, I'll let you talk about it. I know that we had this discussion over the weekend, and I'll let you publicly talk about it, your opinion. And then, like I say, we'll, as a board, visit about it then too.
I just told Randy that our job, I was elected to carry on the business of the county, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm not gonna stop. That's what we were elected to do, so that's what we're gonna do. Meeting after meeting after meeting. So, that's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Personally, I appreciate what Leroy has to say, want to go on, but now that the signatures have been turned in, certification hasn't taken place yet, but the assumption is that there's probably going to be some fail, but whether it drops it underneath the acceptable limit, and that is something that's going to hang over the decisions made by this board until this board is solid again. We do have that sitting out there. And will our decisions be scrutinized if things change in November, is why I brought it up. So it would be, once again, my opinion as one member of this board that we hold up until we know we're whole. And that way, those conversations cannot be scrutinized by anybody at that point in time.
I would agree with that position, Randy.
Yeah, it's a good point. It is another 3-4 months,
It is.
so there's that.
It is. And we didn't ask for it, we didn't plan it, but
Yeah,
it's in front of
exactly.
us, we have to deal with it.
Yep.
Daniel?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to your point of scrutinizing decisions or conversations that are made, and it, to that point also of, wasn't something we asked for, but it was something that we were presented, and we have to act how we feel would be best to do so. And I'm fine waiting to see the outcome. I'm fine with that.
To be fair, the conversations will be scrutinized anyway, so there is that.
No doubt.
Regardless.
Whatever you guys decide to do, I'm fine with that also. All right? I won't think one way or another. I'll just be what you want to do.
Make a motion to table any zoning discussion until that time the recall proceedings have been put to rest or a new commissioner is established.
Andy, can I ask that one word be changed? Because we found out through our meetings, John, tabling is indefinitely postponing. Postponing is the word I would be looking for, if we could use that one,
I
please.
move we postpone.
Thank you.
any discussion on zoning until recall situation has been put to rest or there is a new commissioner put into place.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Mary.
Bowman,
Yes.
Groats,
Yes.
can I,
Yes,
I,
abstain.
okay,
Absolutely, ask him.
Burgess,
No.
Obermeyer.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Okay, so now we are down to the budget. And now we are down to some of the funnest time. John brought up that we get to set elected officials' wages in a few short months. Today, we get to set other wages. I just want to remind everybody before we get going that, you know, as we look at the deputies that we have to set wages for, and that, I mean, the deputy elected officials, because the deputies get set, the sheriff's department gets set by the sheriff's department. And county employees that we control and department heads that we control, you know, these are people. They're not numbers. You know, they are the ones that get scrutinized a lot by the public. They're also the ones that, as we had Josh in here earlier, they put on extra clothing when they come to work to protect them. They're also the ones that are out there in the snow and doing certain things for us too. So as we talk about this, you know, and keeping property taxes in the mix too, these conversations are always tough for us to deal with, but it is something this board has to do. So we will start off with discuss and act on adopting a resolution for the wages for deputy county clerk, deputy county assessor, deputy county treasurer, deputy clerk of the district court, deputy county attorney, and deputy county public defender. And you have those recommendations, I believe, in front of you. Anybody want to kick off the conversation?
Randy, I would like to move into executive session prior to this for a situation that just came up on my phone
Okay, and this is for the reason
to protect the needless harm of
Individual.
of an individual.
okay, and is this individual present? Can they,
No, not at this point.
okay, because they will need to be present
Right.
and they have the option to request it be an open session.
Correct.
Okay, so they are not present currently?
They are present.
They are present?
Yeah.
Okay. And the option to go into executive session is accepted by them also?
No.
Because if they want to do it in open, then we have to do it in open.
Okay, then I withdraw my request.
Okay.
Time being.
I mean, okay. So do we want to do another one first and do we want to take a break, a 5-minute break and check?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, 5-minute break.
Now we'll do this. just.
You're
go back
unmuted.
I-
Back out of recess.
Upon further discussion, we would like to go into executive session for the needless harm of an individual. Harvey Kime, the roads department manager, superintendent will join us in the executive session.
Anybody else?
Gary.
Gary Olson, county attorney, will stay in as well.
That's a motion.
That's a motion
Okay.
at 9:53,
10:53.
10:53.
Okay. Do I have a second?
We got a second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to go into executive session at 10:53 to prevent the needless harm and injury of individual. All in favor? Or Mary, sorry. Taking your job from you. Going back to church stuff.
Groats,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Obermeyer.
Yes.
All right, I'm in this room.
Now you've got to.